Hey there, biology guys and gals, and welcome to our video discussing photosynthesis, one of those two crucial energy processes that happens at the cellular level. The one that is carried out by autotrophs that helps provide the entire planet, almost the entire planet, with the chemical energy needed to sustain life. Okay? We're going to give you a quick overview here of photosynthesis, and then I'm going to walk you through each one of the three stages of photosynthesis. So those are the two major topics here with our video today. Okay. Overview of photosynthesis. Well, what's the general process all about? The general process is all about taking light energy and transforming it into what? I just said it a second ago. Chemical energy. Now, as we talked about last lesson, all living things are in pursuit of that chemical energy, most notably glucose, because it's that simplest chemical energy unit that is used by your cells and plant cells, cells of all living things, to be broken down and turned into ATP, which is indeed cell fuel. Okay? So the main thing for photosynthesis is to harness the energy from the sun, to harness the light energy that the sun gives off, and transform it, convert it into chemical energy. All right? Now the kicker is it's not immediately turned into glucose. It's turned into something else. I kind of call it like glucose junior. It's also known as G3P. We'll get to that later on. But the major thing is we still at times say glucose or we say starch. We kind of bypass or skip those last few steps that come after photosynthesis. Okay? But photosynthesis is indeed the harnessing of light energy from the sun and the transferring of it into chemical energy. Who does it? Well, most notably plants. Okay? Plants are all about taking light energy and turning it into chemical energy. But we also can have certain types of bacteria that carry out this process and certain types of protists that carry out this process. Okay, so plants aren't the only ones. And remember, if you are a self-feeder, you are known as autotrophic. Okay, autotrophic. Alrighty. Now there's two major stages, three stages, two major phases to photosynthesis, and those are the light dependent, and if there's light dependent, then there's also light independent phases. Okay, there are two of stages that are light dependent, and there is one stage that is light independent. So if you're light dependent, you require light to carry out your certain steps of the stage. And if you're light independent, you are not requiring light to actually do what you need to do. All right? Now the formula, the popular formula that you're going to see regarding photosynthesis actually lists some of the ingredients that are present, or actually everything that's needed to carry out this process. The classic formula is 6 oxygen. Whoa. Mr. Williams missed his C there. 6 carbon dioxide molecules in addition to 6 water molecules. In the presence of light energy, we will create this little guy, C6 H12O6. That's glucose. That's the molecular formula for glucose, which is remember from back here earlier on in the beginning, the chemical energy that all life forms are in constant pursuit of, because it's that thing that we can break down into cell fuel. Okay? Now, it's not just glucose that's created by photosynthesis, but we actually have oxygen gas as well. You've heard it before. Plants breathe in carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen gas. That is true. We'll also learn that they exhale and inhale other things as well in the next lesson. We breathe out carbon dioxide and inhale oxygen gas. So not only are plants providing us with the necessary chemical energy to fuel our cellular processes, but plants are also doing us a favor by providing us with oxygen gas that we can breathe in and that we need to assist with other cellular activity. All right? So that's kind of photosynthesis in a nutshell. Light energy to chemical energy, Plants, some forms of bacteria and protists, carry out this process. There's some light-dependent stages. There's one light-independent stage. And the formula here at the beginning. All right, down here at the bottom. This actual molecular formula. Photosynthesis needs carbon dioxide, which got mentioned over here. It needs water, which got mentioned over here. And with the presence of light, sunlight right there coming down on that plant. This plant right here, this guy right here, can generate glucose and also release oxygen gas. All right. So let's get down to the actual brass tacks here, as one of my buddies would say, and let's look at the process of photosynthesis. I've got this diagram on here and this diagram because you actually got a sheet that I handed out to you on the first day that has each one of these on here. So again, sunlight, light energy. Might as well write that up here. So a little bit of practice here, a little bit of review. Come on now. Come on now, marker. There we go. Sunlight, which is our light energy. Okay. With carbon dioxide, an inorganic substance. Key thing is here is carbon. Okay. That's big. And water, H2O. All right. Now, we don't actually have a full plant specimen here, but we have a leaf. Why? Well, because we talked about in 5.1 how leaves are like little solar panels, how they're kind of like specialized plant organs. Ooh, organs. A plant organ, that's what a leaf is, that are all about absorbing sunlight. So think of the actual structure and look of a leaf and the placement of it on a plant. Makes sense now, right? You got all those leaves surrounding the top, and they kind of branch out from the actual middle of the plant. Well, so they can absorb as much sunlight and create as much chemical energy as possible. Okay? So leaves are the actual structures, plant organ structures, at which photosynthesis takes place in. What are the products? Because I guess we could also go over here and kind of go back to section or unit 2 here, where the stuff on the left here is the reactants, and stuff over here, well, this is our products. All right. The actual products of photosynthesis, as an overview, oxygen gas and glucose, C6H12O6. Okay? So, photosynthesis takes place in the leaves. Any green material present in a plant, but most notably, and most of the time, inside of the leaves. Now, this leaf is composed of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of plant cells, and within those plant cells is that specific photosynthetic organelle known as the chloroplast. Okay? Chloroplast, that's an organelle found in the plant cells of a plant and really concentrated in the leaf organ of a plant. Some general structures here that we reviewed on day 1. We got these guys called the thylakoids. And this is actually where stage 1 and stage 2 of photosynthesis are going to take place. Okay? Inside this thylakoid, each one of these guys, all right, is chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is a green pigment, so it's a lipid, it's a fat that's lodged inside of the thylakoid membrane. It's a light-absorbing lipid. It is the part of the plant that actually kicks off the photosynthetic process. We absorb the light, okay? That's pretty much stage 1. And that brings us to our next slide, which is a slide that's dedicated to stage 1 and a little bit of stage 2, or a whole lot of actually. Okay, so stage 1 and stage 2 here. All right, so here, right here, this would be an example of chlorophyll. This big old chunk of green right here, a big old green lipid that's lodged inside the thylakoid membrane. Light energy strikes this pigment and is absorbed. Now, as the example I gave some of you guys in class is, if you go outside in the sun and you stand in the sunlight, not only do you have light shining on you, but you also start to feel a little bit of heat. Okay? Well, over time, this guy starts to heat up. And it's attached to an enzyme. And enzymes assist in chemical reactions, either by helping build or break down certain molecules and compounds. Well, enzymes, some of them, can actually assist with the reaction in a more efficient manner, or are not actually activated until they hit an ideal temperature. All right, so that's why you put some things in the fridge to slow down chemical reactions. That's why we heat some things up, because it helps speed up chemical reactions and break things down. Well, that's kind of the idea behind this right here. Okay, light energy, stage 1, light absorption. Light energy strikes this pigment right here and starts to warm this pigment up. Okay, before you know it, it is attached to this water-splitting enzyme, and bam! Enzymatic reaction is triggered, and water, H2O, is split into oxygen gas, hydrogen ions, and free-flowing electrons. All right? That ends stage 1. So, stage 1 happens where? It happens in the thylakoid membrane. Most notably in the pigments that are lodged throughout the thylakoid membranes. Okay? What's the general premise of stage 1? Light absorption. Okay? And what's going on in terms of energy? Well, we're going from light, and we're beginning to get to chemical energy, but we haven't gotten there yet. Okay? Basically, we've used light energy to split, or to help provide the energy needed to split a water molecule. And anytime you break a bond, what happens when you break bonds? Think for a second. Breaking bonds does what with energy? It releases it. So now we have all that energy present in these hydrogen ions and electrons, and that's when we move to stage 2, which sometimes is called the ETC, or the electron transport chain. Please be informed enough of this process in this stage that you don't call it the etc. stage. I've had that happen before. Don't call it etc. It's the ETC. It's the electron transport chain. So what happens here is stage 1 is ended. We have absorbed light inside the pigments in the thylakoid membrane, and enough of it's been absorbed where we finally hit that ideal temperature area, and bam, that enzymatic reaction is triggered, water is split, and before you know it, we've got energy being released, and we've got energized elements coming from that water molecule. Okay? So hydrogen ions gather and become highly concentrated inside of the cell. Well, they go from an area of high to low concentration naturally. We call that diffusion. So as they diffuse out of this carrier protein right here, this hydrogen ion provides enough energy to join an ADP molecule and a phosphate group and create ATP, which is one form of cell energy. I call it cell fuel. I call it cell fuel energy, or immediate chemical energy. And I'm going to abbreviate chem energy here. Okay? So that's one part of the electron transport chain in stage 2. Okay? One part of the electron transport chain in stage 2. The other part is this electron here starts to kind of rapidly move through certain areas of the thylakoid membrane, certain enzymes of the thylakoid membrane, and eventually another pigment where it becomes re-energized. All right? As it moves through these little areas, it eventually gets kicked out of the thylakoid membrane and links up with an NADP compound, another hydrogen ion, and that electron provides the energy needed to have these two react and create NADPH, which is temporary. I'm going to abbreviate that too, okay? Temporary, for temporary, chemical energy. Okay? So, stage 1, all about light absorption. Stage 2, all about taking that light energy and actually converting it into two types of chemical energy. Temporary chemical energy and immediate chemical energy, known as cell fuel, or ATP. It's these two forms of chemical energy, NADPH and ATP, that are actually going to help fuel stage 3 and create stored chemical energy. Okay, so we're almost there yet. We're not there yet, but we're getting there, all right? So stage 2, where does it happen? Well, it also happens in the thylakoid membrane, okay? It also happens a little bit in the stroma, that liquid-filled area outside of the thylakoids, but still inside the... What is it kind of collectively known as? What process is taking place here? Well, the electron transport chain is being utilized or used to create some of this chemical energy. And we finally have moved from light energy to a couple forms of chemical energy. All right? Last slide here we've got is stage 3. And stage 3 is all about the Calvin cycle. Okay? Calvin cycle takes place in the stroma, which is that liquid-filled area inside of the chloroplast. And it is all about taking temp and immediate cell fuel chem energy and transferring it into stored chemical energy. Okay? A lot of times people jump right to it and say they store it, it becomes glucose. But really what it becomes is this thing called G3P. And that G3P can become several different organic compounds. Okay? So, this diagram here outlines a little bit of stage 1 and stage 2 at the same time, but I have it up here because I want to show you how this is indeed a cycle, how photosynthesis is constantly ongoing, and there's a lot of stuff that's reused and recycled all the time. All right? So stage 3, the Calvin cycle, happens inside the stroma, and it takes temporary and immediate chemical energy, and it uses those forms of chemical energy to create stored chemical energy. Okay? Plants, we said, need carbon dioxide. Well, that's where the carbon dioxide comes into effect finally in stage 3 here. Okay? We need more carbon to create G3P and other organic compounds. Well, plants get that from carbon dioxide gas. There's also a ton of carbon already floating around inside of the stroma. There's already some pre-packaged, pre-made carbon compounds that are flowing around inside of the liquid inside of the chloroplast. So the Calvin cycle is basically taking some of these carbons and bonding them with the carbon dioxide from the carbon dioxide gas. Okay, or bonding them with the carbon from the carbon dioxide gas. Again, anytime we take two things and break them apart, or we take two things and put them together, energy is needed. Energy is needed to break it, energy is needed to form it. The energy that we get, or the energy we need to form these things into this G3P, this glucose, well, that comes from this stuff right here, the NADPH and the ATP. So ATP and NADPH are both forms of energy, chemical energy, that assist in putting together the carbon from carbon dioxide and the other carbon compounds that are floating around inside the stroma and giving us glucose, or more specifically, G3P. Okay? It's called the Calvin cycle, and you can check out the diagram in your textbook, because not every single pre-made carbon compound is actually modified using the chemical energy and turned into G3P. Some of the stuff goes and is broken down by more enzymes and is recycled, enters or just lingers around, or re-enters the Calvin cycle again and again. So after this ATP and this NADPH are used to make G3P, then the NADP and the ADP are recycled, and they linger back to the thylakoids, where they will eventually receive the necessary components to become temporary energy units again. And then they'll come over to the stroma, and they'll carry out the Calvin cycle, and they'll make some G3P, okay? And then some of them will be broken down and reused, and they'll come back over here to light reactions to get the necessary energy, become ATP and NADPH again, over and over and over. All right? So photosynthesis, a big time cycle with a lot of moving parts. That does it. All right? I'm taking a breath right there. A lot of talking going on, a lot of video, a lot of information. But I wanted to make this video so it's present, so it's out there, so you can use it. Okay? You can constantly consult it. You can ask me questions. You can try to make sense of it with the text, with other resources online. Okay? Some big things to remember again is that this whole process is about going from light energy to temporary chemical energy to stored chemical energy. Okay? Light energy to temporary chemical energy in those forms that we saw in photosynthesis as we went through it, NADP and NADPH. Make that a D there. D. Okay? And the stored chemical energy, we usually jump the gun and we just say right away, it's glucose. Okay? Alright? Stored chemical energy being glucose. But you're going to see G3P quite a bit. Alright? That's the major premise of photosynthesis. Okay? You need to understand the energy conversion that takes place, where it takes place, what stage it takes place in, and just again a general summary of each one of the stages, kind of the processes that happen. Okay? So what stage it is, what energy is being converted or transferred in that stage, and where that stage takes place. Those are the big things to understand for photosynthesis. All right? For homework, come to Tuesday or Wednesday's class with the back of that 5.1, 5.2 worksheet completed, okay? Try to answer those practice questions about 5.2 over photosynthesis, all right? And that's all you need for homework, okay? If you wanted to take notes over this, that's fine, but I'm not requiring anything else from this video. This is just to be out there to assist you. Just need to have the backside of that worksheet done, all right? If you have questions, email me, tweet me, contact me somehow. That's all I got for you. See you later.